You think those greasy fast food bags and frozen microwave trays are the answer to busy weeknights? Think again. Dusty cookbooks from our grandmother's kitchens hold recipes that come together faster and taste infinitely better than anything wrapped in paper. Let's dig into 60 quick recipes from old cookbooks that still beat fast food today. Ginger ale. Ice cream float pie turned a favorite soda shop treat into a picnic-ready dessert. A graham cracker crust was pressed firmly into a pie pan and chilled while vanilla ice cream softened slightly on the counter. The ice cream was then mixed with bubbly ginger ale until smooth and lightly frothy, creating a creamy filling with a gentle spice and fizz. This mixture was poured into the crust and left to firm in the icebox until ready to serve. Just before cutting, a thin layer of whipped cream was spread across the top and sprinkled with crushed ginger snaps for extra crunch. Each slice tasted like an old-fashioned float, cool and sweet with a hint of ginger warmth. Because it required no baking and could be prepared hours ahead, it became a go-to dessert for hot summer gatherings. Children loved the effervescent flavor, while adults appreciated the nostalgic nod to soda fountain days. It captured the playful side of church picnics, where families mingled under the trees and every dish held a touch of celebration. Chicken salad with grape sandwich became a tea room favorite, where tender diced chicken mixed with creamy mayonnaise and halved grapes for a touch of natural sweetness and elegant contrast. The juicy grapes brightened the savory chicken, while chopped celery often added crunch, making the sandwich both refreshing and hearty. Women's magazines of the 1940s and 50s showcased it as the perfect luncheon choice for bridal showers and Sunday gatherings, using leftover roast chicken kept it economical. While grapes lent a touch of luxury, families loved how easily it could be made ahead and served, chilled on soft rolls or delicate finger sandwich slices. Even children enjoyed the gentle sweetness which balanced the richness of the mayonnaise as fashions shifted toward simpler deli meats. This refined combination faded from everyday menus, but it remains a timeless reminder of mid-century hospitality and the way a few well-chosen ingredients could elevate a simple sandwich into a meal that felt special without being extravagant. Crispy, fried green tomato slices were a beloved Southern-inspired snack and side dish popularized in the 1960s, made by thinly slicing unripe green tomatoes, breading, and pan-frying them until golden and crisp. This 10-minute recipe was cherished for its tangy, slightly tart flavor and crunchy texture, providing a satisfying contrast to heavier dishes. The tomatoes were often dipped in a simple batter or breading mixture seasoned with salt and pepper, then fried in hot oil for a quick, flavorful treat. Crispy fried green tomatoes were commonly served at family dinners, potlucks, and restaurants, representing Southern comfort food that gained national popularity during the decade. Their quick preparation and bold taste made them a favorite for those seeking easy yet delicious recipes. Though the dish has become a regional classic, it stands as a nostalgic reminder of the inventive, approachable cooking styles of the 1960s. Quick escalloped tomatoes was one of those recipes that appeared in nearly every community cookbook because of its low cost and speed. The instructions were straightforward. Open a can of tomatoes, stir them with breadcrumbs, butter, and a pinch of sugar, then bake them just until hot and bubbling. In 10 minutes flat, you had a side dish that stretched canned goods into something hearty and flavorful. Families served it alongside meats or with slices of bread, and it quickly became a way to make canned vegetables feel more like a proper meal. The texture of soft tomatoes and crunchy crumbs gave it appeal, while the butter made it feel more indulgent than it really was. For many households, this was the kind of recipe that bridged the gap between practicality and comfort, proving that even with limited ingredients, flavor could still shine. Egg lemon soup, or avgolemono, was fast, filling, and smooth. Greek immigrants brought the recipe with them, and it quickly spread to American kitchens. You just needed broth, a beaten egg, lemon juice, and something starchy like rice or orzo. The trick was slowly stirring in the egg so the heat thickened the soup without scrambling it. The result was creamy without cream, brightened by lemon, and warm enough to soothe anything. Greek-American families swore by it. By the 1920s, it showed up in cookbooks as lemon egg soup, or quick Greek broth. Light but hearty, it matched the era's need for meals that felt comforting but cost little. If the broth was hot and the egg ready, you could have it on the table in 10 minutes. It was quiet, soft, and somehow still bold. Meatball sub with jarred sauce turned a simple grocery shortcut into a filling dinner that satisfied every craving for Italian flavor without a long simmer. Pre-made meatballs went straight from the freezer into a skillet of bubbling jarred marinara, their aroma mingling with garlic and herbs as they heated through. Crusty sandwich rolls toasted under the broiler until the edges crisped and the center stayed soft. As soon as the meatballs were hot and coated in rich sauce, they were spooned into the warm rolls and showered with shredded mozzarella that melted instantly. The result was a hearty sandwich with tender meat, tangy tomato, and gooey cheese in every bite, ready in less time than it took to set the table. Families loved how it felt like a deli treat even on a rushed weeknight, while kids enjoyed the messy fun of eating it with both hands. Each sub tasted slow-cooked and special, proof that smart shortcuts can create a dinner worth gathering around, bringing warmth and satisfaction to the end of a long day without draining time, energy, or budget. One pan, one jar, and a handful of rolls delivered comfort that lingered well past the last bite. Sardine salad sandwich was one of those recipes that reflected the ingenuity of frugal kitchens, especially during years when meat was expensive or scarce. Cooks would mash canned sardines with mayonnaise, lemon juice, and sometimes chopped onion or celery to create a flavorful spread. The mixture could be prepared in minutes and spread onto bread or crackers for a meal that was cheap yet nourishing. Old cookbooks encouraged this recipe because sardines were inexpensive, shelf-stable, and packed with protein and healthy oils. Families often served the sandwiches for lunches, picnics, or even light suppers, making it a versatile standby. The flavor was bold but balanced by the creamy mayonnaise and bright lemon. For households needing to stretch a few cans into several servings, this recipe worked beautifully. It was not fancy, but it was practical, and for many it became a nostalgic taste of childhood lunches. Sardine salad sandwiches stood as proof that old cookbooks made the most of every pantry staple. Crispy cheese and cracker stack was a beloved no-cook snack in many 1960s American homes, consisting of neatly layered slices of cheese and crisp crackers assembled for easy serving and eating. This simple but satisfying recipe required only the choice of favorite cheeses, such as sharp cheddar, Swiss, or processed cheese slices, stacked between crackers to create bite-sized, flavorful snacks. The delightful contrast between the crunchy texture of the crackers and the smooth or firm texture of the cheese made this dish a favorite at family gatherings, cocktail parties, and casual snacks alike. These stacks could be put together in minutes, making them an ideal last-minute appetizer or easy-to-grab snack option. The recipe reflected the mid-century American appreciation for convenience combined with familiar and comforting flavors. Though modern snack trends have evolved toward more elaborate or health-focused options, crispy cheese and cracker stacks remain a nostalgic favorite for those who remember classic party fare, representing a time when simple ingredients and minimal preparation were the keys to enjoyable, entertaining, and quick bites. Ginger ale salad was a dazzling surprise on any table. Made from powdered gelatin, canned fruit, and sweet, fizzy ginger ale, it wobbled with pride from the center of countless luncheons and family dinners. You dissolved the gelatin in hot water, stirred in ginger ale, and drained canned pineapple, and poured the mixture into molds. In less than 10 minutes of prep, you had something colorful, sweet, and full of sparkle. The ginger ale gave it a mild bite, and the fruit added texture. Once set, it was sliced or scooped, often served on lettuce leaves with a spoonful of cottage cheese. Housewives in the 1920s loved this dish because it was elegant without being complicated. Ginger ale was still something of a treat, and when paired with fruit and gelatin, it became more than just a beverage. It became dessert, or salad, or both, depending on who you asked. It was a novelty that felt a bit modern, a bit clever, and always worth repeating. The bubbles made it feel festive, and the colors made it cheerful. It may not have lasted through the decades, but it once lit up tables everywhere. Country ham and red-eye gravy brought a bold, salty kick to the end of a long day, drawing on traditions that went back generations. Thin slices of country ham hit a hot skillet and sizzled until their edges crisped and their smoky scent filled the kitchen. Once the meat was removed, strong black coffee was poured into the pan to deglaze the savory bits, blending with a splash of water and a touch of butter to create the dark, rich gravy that gave the dish its name. The result was a sauce both bitter and savory, perfect for spooning over the ham or soaking into warm biscuits. In less than 15 minutes, the table held a meal that tasted slow, cooked, and soulful. Working families appreciated the speed while still honoring a Southern classic, and the sharp aroma of coffee and ham became a sign that dinner was ready. Each bite balanced salt, smoke, and a subtle bitterness, a reminder of farmhouse suppers where nothing was wasted and flavor came from skill and tradition rather than expensive ingredients. Anchovy and egg sandwich offered a bold coastal flavor that appealed to those who loved a briny bite. Finely chopped anchovies were blended with butter and mashed hard-cooked eggs, creating a creamy, salty spread that was both rich and nourishing. This hearty mixture found popularity in port cities and immigrant neighborhoods where tinned anchovies were inexpensive and plentiful families appreciated the protein boost during the lean war years, while diners enjoyed the unique taste that stood out among milder lunch offerings. A squeeze of lemon or a pinch of black pepper often rounded out the filling served on rye or crusty white bread. It provided a satisfying lunch that required no refrigeration and little effort. By the 1950s, changing tastes and a move towards sweeter, milder flavors pushed it aside. But the anchovy and egg sandwich still carries the memory of an era when bold ingredients and simple preparation came together to create something unforgettable and full of character. Soda pop pound cake cups turned an ordinary boxed mix into a church picnic marvel that delighted every sweet tooth in the crowd. Home bakers poured orange soda straight into yellow cake batter, skipping milk or water, which gave the cupcakes a fragrant citrus lift and a tender crumb that stayed moist for hours. The carbonation worked magic in the oven, creating a light, airy texture, while the soda's sugar deepened the golden color of the crust. Each cupcake baked quickly in paper liners so they could be passed around to children running barefoot across the grass or packed into baskets without worry. A thin glaze of powdered sugar and a few spoonfuls of the same soda finished them off with a bright, sticky sheen that caught the sunlight and made them shine. Guests were amazed at how a single bottle of soda transformed a humble mix into something worth writing down. And cooks loved how easy it was to prepare large batches when time was short, and the fellowship hall was already buzzing with music and laughter. These little cakes were proof that a playful idea and a splash of soda could turn a simple treat into a memory of summer joy and community spirit. Salisbury steak patties with gravy mix offered a hearty plate in minutes, transforming ground beef into something that tasted like a slow Sunday supper. Lean beef was seasoned with onion powder, garlic, and a splash of Worcestershire, then shaped into oval patties and seared in a skillet until crisp on the outside and juicy inside. While the meat browned, a packet of instant brown gravy whisked together with water created a smooth sauce in a separate pan. Once the patties were done, they were nestled into the bubbling gravy for a final simmer that coated them in rich flavor. Served over mashed potatoes or buttered toast, the meal felt far more elaborate than the clock revealed. Working parents loved the speed and the hearty comfort, while children scooped up every drop of gravy with the last crust of bread. It was a dinner that turned a simple pound of beef into something warm, filling, and memorable, the kind of dish that proves convenience and care can live on the same plate. Boiled lettuce and butter might raise eyebrows now, but back in the 1920s, it was a surprisingly common side. You took whole leaves or halved heads of lettuce, dropped them into boiling water just until tender, then drained and dressed them with melted butter and salt. That was it. The lettuce wilted slightly, taking on a silky texture that felt oddly luxurious for such a simple dish. It was often served with eggs, potatoes, or fish, giving just enough greens to round out a meal without needing a full salad. This was especially handy when the lettuce was on its last legs. limp or bitter, but still usable. Rather than throw it away, home cooks gave it one last act of service. Boiled lettuce absorbed flavor fast and cost practically nothing to prepare. You could cook and serve it in under 10 minutes, using a single pot and whatever seasoning you had on hand. Though modern diners might flinch at the idea, families back then saw it as practical and even refined. Butter made everything better, and for many households, this soft green side was a quiet staple. Quick rice and raisin cereal was a warm, comforting breakfast that many families turned to when they needed to use up leftover rice from dinner. The method was fast. Add the cooked rice to a saucepan with milk, sugar, and a handful of raisins, then simmer until thickened and fragrant. In under 10 minutes, the rice transformed into a sweet, porridge-like cereal that filled hungry bellies with very little cost. Old cookbooks praised it as an economical way to stretch a grain across multiple meals, ensuring that nothing went to waste. Families enjoyed the subtle sweetness of the raisins, which plumped up in the hot milk, and often added a dash of cinnamon or nutmeg for flavor. It was also forgiving, working with whatever milk or sweetener happened to be on hand. This recipe showed the kind of everyday ingenuity that kept households fed and satisfied during lean years. It was proof that leftovers were never just scraps. They were opportunities for something new. Rice and raisin cereal reminded families that comfort could be built out of yesterday's pot and today's imagination. Quick cranberry and orange relish was a vibrant and tangy cold side dish that gained popularity in the 1960s for holiday meals and casual dinners alike. This recipe mixed fresh or canned cranberries with grated orange zest and sugar, sometimes adding chopped nuts for crunch, all combined into a zesty relish served chilled. Its bright colors and lively flavors offered a refreshing contrast to rich main dishes such as roasted turkey or ham. The relish was easy to prepare, requiring little more than mixing and chilling, making it an ideal 10-minute recipe for busy cooks. It captured the decade's preference for quick, flavorful condiments that added zest and variety to traditional meals. Though cranberry sauce remains popular, this quick cranberry and orange relish stands out as a nostalgic alternative that embodies mid-century America's inventive take on holiday sides and fresh fruit dishes. Vegetable fried rice with leftover meat transformed scraps and day-old rice into a fragrant dinner in less than 15 minutes. Cold-cooked rice was the key, each grain separating as it hit the hot oil of a wide skillet or wok. Bits of carrot, peas, and diced onions followed, their colors brightening as they sizzled. Leftover meat, whether pork chops, chicken, or beef, was sliced thin and tossed in with a splash of soy sauce and a drizzle of sesame oil. A quick scramble of eggs in the corner of the pan finished the dish, binding everything together with soft ribbons. The result was smoky and savory, carrying the scent of garlic and ginger through the house. Families appreciated how it cleared the refrigerator of odds and ends while creating a meal that tasted planned and special. Served hot straight from the pan, it proved that yesterday's rice and scraps of meat could become a satisfying dinner that rivaled takeout, saving both time and money without sacrificing flavor or comfort. Banana and mayo sandwich stood as a Southern classic where ripe bananas met smooth mayonnaise on soft white bread, creating a sweet and tangy combination that puzzled outsiders but delighted generations of families across rural towns. The creamy mayo blended with the natural sugar of the bananas, forming a rich spread that needed no extra seasoning. People enjoyed it chilled for a cooling summer lunch or packed it into lunch boxes for long days in the fields because the ingredients were cheap filling and easy to find during the 1930s and 40s when other fruits were scarce. This sandwich offered a satisfying taste of sweetness with a touch of protein from the mayonnaise. Some cooks added a sprinkle of salt or a dash of lemon juice, but tradition kept it simple. Church picnics and roadside diners both served it proudly, proving that comfort food often lives in the most unexpected pairings and its nostalgic charm still tempts adventurous eaters today. Water chestnut bacon wraps brought a surprising crunch to the picnic table. Whole canned water chestnuts were drained and patted dry, then wrapped in strips of smoky bacon secured with wooden toothpicks. Each bundle was brushed with a light glaze of brown sugar and soy sauce before being broiled until the bacon turned crisp and caramelized. The result was a savory sweet bite with a satisfying snap at the center. These little morsels were perfect finger food, disappearing quickly from platters as children and adults alike reached for seconds. They traveled well and could be served warm or at room temperature, making them ideal for outdoor gatherings where timing was unpredictable. Their mix of textures and flavors delighted guests who might not have expected such a modern-tasting treat at a church picnic. The recipe showed how 1960s cooks blended pantry staples with global influences, turning simple ingredients into something exciting and memorable that encouraged conversation and friendly competition for the last piece. Quick lima bean puree was the kind of side dish that took no more than 10 minutes but felt like it took some planning. You opened a can of lima beans, gave them a rinse, and then mashed them smooth with a little butter, salt, and pepper. If you had garlic or parsley, you could throw that in too. Some people added a splash of vinegar or lemon juice just to brighten things up. It could be served warm, like mashed potatoes, or cold as a spread on toast or crackers. What made it so special was how versatile it was. You could dress it up or down depending on what was around. For working-class homes and rural kitchens, this was one of those dishes that always showed up on the table because it was dependable, nutritious, and incredibly cheap. Lima beans were a pantry staple, and this method of turning them into something soft and seasoned made them more appealing to picky eaters too. It was fast, filling, and easy to make in batches. When you needed something hearty without the wait, this little mashup saved the day. Corn fritters with syrup were a fast, comforting dish that many families relied on when they needed something warm and hearty without much effort. The recipe called for mixing cornmeal with a bit of flour, milk, and canned or fresh corn kernels, then frying spoonfuls of the batter in a hot skillet until golden brown. The crisp outside and tender inside made the fritters irresistible, especially when topped with maple syrup or molasses. Old cookbooks often promoted them as a budget-friendly alternative to pancakes, since cornmeal was cheap and plentiful. Housewives could have them on the table in under 10 minutes, which made them perfect for breakfast, lunch, or even a light supper. Families appreciated how filling they were, and children loved their sweet, rustic flavor. They were especially popular in rural areas where corn was a staple crop, making the recipe both accessible and practical. Corn fritters with syrup were more than just food. They were a reminder of simple pleasures created out of modest means. Quick, satisfying, and always welcome, they brought comfort with every bite. Quick fruit and nut yogurt. Parfait was a quick and nutritious treat beloved in the 1960s for its simple assembly and delightful flavors. This parfait layered creamy yogurt with sweet canned fruits such as peaches or pineapple, along with a generous sprinkling of chopped nuts like walnuts or pecans. The combination provided a pleasing contrast between the smooth, tangy yogurt, the juicy fruit, and the crunchy texture of the nuts. Perfect for breakfast, a snack, or a light dessert, this recipe required minimal preparation time, fitting the era's demand for fast, wholesome meals. The canned fruit added a convenient sweetness that balanced the natural tartness of yogurt, while the nuts contributed protein and richness. This parfait was often served in clear glasses to showcase its colorful layers, making it visually appealing as well as tasty. Its popularity reflected the growing awareness of health and nutrition during the decade, along with a desire for fresh, easy-to-make dishes. While today's parfaits may include granola or fresh fruit, the classic 1960s fruit and nut yogurt parfait remains a nostalgic favorite, combining pantry staples into a satisfying and wholesome treat that anyone could whip up in moments. Canned peas with cream sauce were the definition of a humble side dish that pulled more than its weight. You took a can of peas, drained it, and dropped them into a quick stovetop roux made from flour, butter, and milk. A pinch of salt, maybe some pepper or dried thyme if it was handy, and you had something smooth and savory on your hands. The peas went tender fast. There was no need to cook them long, and the sauce brought everything together in a way that felt a little fancy without being fussy. It was a trick passed around through cookbooks and kitchen counters alike, especially in households trying to stretch a single can across a whole table. It worked next to potatoes, toast, or even scrambled eggs. Cream sauce added richness, body, and just enough warmth to make you forget the dish had come from a tin. During the 1920s, canned goods were becoming more widespread and affordable, and this recipe was a way to make something shelf-stable taste home-cooked. It may have taken under 10 minutes to make, but it stayed with you, especially when dinner had to be done before the stove even got hot. Cheddar and broccoli omelet made a hearty egg dinner with bright color and bold flavor in minutes. Eggs were whisked with a splash of milk and a pinch of black pepper, then poured into a hot skillet where butter foamed at the edges. Fresh or frozen broccoli florets steamed quickly in the microwave or in a small pan, keeping their green snap and gentle sweetness. As the eggs began to set, sharp cheddar cheese was scattered across the surface, releasing a nutty scent as it melted. The broccoli folded inside added texture and an earthy contrast to the creamy eggs. In less than 10 minutes, the omelet slid onto a plate, golden on the outside and gooey within. Served with toasted bread or a handful of greens, it offered both comfort and nourishment, proving that dinner can be simple yet feel complete. This dish turned basic staples into a meal that pleased everyone at the table while leaving only one pan to wash, making it ideal for nights when time and patience were in short supply, but good food was still essential. Hot slaw. Sandwich turned leftover cabbage into a warm and hearty meal that fit perfectly with the frugal habits of the Great Depression. Families would shred cabbage, onions, and carrots, then cook them down with vinegar, sugar, and a hint of mustard until the mixture became tender and tangy. This hot slaw was piled generously onto buttered buns or thick slices of bread, making a filling dinner when meat was out of reach. The heat of the slaw softened the bread slightly, creating a comforting texture that felt indulgent. Despite its simple ingredients, diners and boarding houses across the Midwest served it as a reliable daily special, while home cooks appreciated how it stretched a small garden harvest into a satisfying supper. Its aroma of sweet and sour cabbage would fill the kitchen and invite everyone to the table long after those lean years ended. The memory of that steaming sandwich lingered as proof that thrift and taste can live side by side. Frosted pineapple rings were the kind of cheerful dish that caught every eye on a church picnic table in the 1960s. Thick, golden slices of canned pineapple were drained and patted dry before being chilled on a wide platter. A creamy mixture of softened cream cheese whipped with powdered sugar and a drop of vanilla was then piped or spooned into the center of each ring, forming a snowy crown that contrasted beautifully with the bright fruit. Some cooks added a cherry on top for a pop of red, while others sprinkled finely chopped pecans to give a delicate crunch. The sweet tart pineapple paired perfectly with the tangy cream cheese, making each bite a refreshing balance of flavors. Because the ingredients were inexpensive and easy to find year-round, these rings became a reliable favorite for large gatherings. They held up well in the summer heat and stayed cool inside picnic baskets packed with ice, offering a sweet treat that required no baking and almost no time. Guests often reached for them first, drawn by their glossy shine and promise of bright tropical flavor amid a spread of hearty casseroles and smoky barbecue. It was a simple dessert that tasted like sunshine and fellowship. Ham and cheese biscuit sandwiches turned leftovers into a satisfying handheld meal that tasted like a weekend treat even on the busiest night. Flaky biscuits baked from a can or quickly mixed from scratch rose high in the oven while slices of baked ham warmed in a skillet. As soon as the biscuits were golden, they were split open and layered with the savory ham and slices of sharp cheddar or mild American cheese. A few minutes back in the warm oven melted the cheese into a gooey blanket that glued everything together. The salty ham, buttery biscuit, and rich cheese made a perfect combination that required no side dish and no long wait. For families coming home late, this sandwich was both supper and comfort, a way to turn yesterday's roast into tonight's fast feast. Children grabbed them hot from the tray, and the memory of that warm bite remains an echo of efficiency and home-style pleasure. Oyster cracker soup made the most out of very little. You started with broth, homemade if you had bones or scraps, canned if you did not, and brought it to a boil. Then you stirred in a handful of oyster crackers and let them soak just long enough to soften without turning to mush. That was the whole recipe. Some people added a sprinkle of parsley or a pat of butter, But this soup was never about extravagance. It was about comfort. Oyster crackers were cheap, sold in large tins and kept for ages in a cool pantry. When paired with warm broth, they transformed into something soothing and starchy, perfect for sick days, cold nights, or tight budgets. Children loved the texture. Adults appreciated how quickly it came together. It was the kind of dish you could make with almost nothing, yet still sit down and feel like you had a proper meal. In a decade where time was short and money even shorter, oyster cracker soup became a staple in homes that knew how to stretch every spoonful. Pea fritters were one of those clever Depression-era recipes that turned inexpensive canned vegetables into something filling and satisfying. Cooks would mash peas with a little flour and egg, season them with salt and pepper, and drop spoonfuls of the mixture into a hot skillet. In minutes, the patties crisped on the outside while staying tender inside, creating a dish that was both thrifty and hearty. Old cookbooks praised pea fritters as an excellent way to serve vegetables in a form that children were more likely to eat. They were versatile too, working as a side dish, a quick lunch, or even a meat substitute when supplies were low. Families often topped them with gravy or a dab of ketchup to add flavor. For households trying to stretch every can in the pantry, pea fritters felt like a small victory. They were quick to prepare, easy to adapt, and proof that even the simplest ingredients could become something memorable with a little imagination. Italian sausage hoagies brought the flavor of a street fair to the dinner table with little more than a skillet and a few minutes. Pre-cooked Italian sausage links browned quickly until their casings crackled and juices sizzled across the pan. Sliced onions and bell peppers joined the heat, softening and caramelizing as they soaked up the seasoned drippings. Hoagie rolls warmed in the oven until lightly crisp on the outside and tender within. When the vegetables turned golden, the sausages nestled into the rolls, draped with the sweet pepper and onion mixture, and a light scatter of shredded provolone if desired. Each bite balanced smoky spice, soft bread, and the gentle sweetness of slow-cooked vegetables. The meal felt festive, yet required almost no effort, making it a favorite for families who wanted bold taste without a long cooking session. Served with a simple green salad or a handful of chips, these hoagies brought the spirit of an Italian street vendor into a busy kitchen, showing that fast food can still be deeply satisfying and full of character when prepared with care and served piping hot. Cucumber mint sandwich offered a cooling relief on warm afternoons when kitchens grew hot, and air conditioning was a distant dream. Thin slices of freshly peeled cucumber were layered on buttered bread, along with finely chopped mint leaves, creating a sandwich that felt both elegant and refreshing. Popular at garden parties and bridal teas of the 1920s and 1930s, it became a symbol of easy hospitality. The subtle crunch of cucumber mixed with the fragrant mint made each bite feel crisp and light. Butter acted as a seal, keeping the bread from growing soggy during long outdoor events. Hosts often chilled the sandwiches before serving, so the flavors would meld and the texture remain firm, though simple. This sandwich carried a quiet sophistication that appealed to anyone seeking a brief escape from heavier fare. And even today, its delicate balance of herb and vegetable stands as a reminder that elegance often comes from the simplest ingredients handled with care and intention. Chocolate potato candy fascinated guests who could not believe that mashed potatoes could hide inside such a decadent sweet. Leftover potatoes were mashed smooth and combined with cocoa powder, butter, and powdered sugar to form a pliable dough that was rolled into logs or pressed into small squares. The mixture set quickly and sliced clean, revealing a rich chocolate flavor with a subtle earthy depth. Some cooks added chopped nuts or coconut for extra texture, while others drizzled a thin glaze of melted chocolate to create a glossy finish. This candy required no baking and made use of ingredients already in most kitchens, proving that a touch of imagination could turn everyday staples into a treat fit for a celebration. Children were delighted by the story behind it, and adults enjoyed the surprising moistness that kept each bite tender even in the summer sun. It became a treasured recipe to share among friends, a reminder that thrift and creativity often lead to the most memorable flavors on a crowded picnic table. Cucumber and sour cream salad was one of those fast dishes that found its way into nearly every old cookbook because it required so little effort and always tasted refreshing. Thin slices of cucumber were tossed in a dressing made from sour cream, sugar, and a splash of vinegar or lemon juice to give it balance. The sweet and tangy mixture clung to the crisp cucumber slices, making the salad both cooling and creamy. In summer months, it was often served straight from the icebox, which gave it even more appeal. Housewives appreciated how quickly it came together, often in less than 10 minutes, and how it could stretch a garden's worth of cucumbers into a dish that seemed more substantial. Families liked it as a side with roast meats or sandwiches, and it often appeared at picnics or potlucks because it traveled well in jars. The salad's popularity came from its thrift as much as its taste, since cucumbers were cheap and sour cream was often at hand. It was simple, satisfying, and a little bit special without being complicated. Chicken and celery salad cups were a refreshing and hearty cold dish that featured shredded cooked chicken combined with crunchy celery and creamy mayonnaise, served in crisp lettuce or endive cups. This 10-minute recipe was a favorite at 1960s cocktail parties and family gatherings for its convenience and attractive presentation. The chicken and celery mixture was lightly seasoned and chilled, providing a cool, satisfying filling that balanced the tender meat with fresh, crisp vegetables. Serving the salad in lettuce or endive leaves allowed for an elegant finger food option that was both light and filling. This dish showcased the era's talent for transforming simple ingredients into stylish, easy-to-eat appetizers. Though modern tastes have shifted towards different wraps and dips, chicken and celery salad cups remain a delightful example of mid-century American entertaining that combined speed, flavor, and sophistication. Quick carrot marmalade captured the brightness of citrus and the earthy sweetness of carrots in a jam ready before the choir finished rehearsal. Finely grated carrots simmered with fresh orange juice, a ribbon of lemon zest, and plain sugar in a heavy pot until the mixture thickened into a glossy spread. A whisper of ginger or clove added gentle spice, while the natural pectin in the carrots gave the marmalade a satisfying body without extra effort. Spread across hot biscuits or spooned over simple pound cake, it brought a lively splash of sunshine to every bite. The bright orange color shone like stained glass in jars, making it as pretty as it was flavorful and earning admiring glances from the dessert table. Because it used inexpensive ingredients and required less than an hour, it quickly became a favorite among busy picnic planners. Guests loved how it brightened the menu and added a tangy note that balanced fried foods, preserving the memory of summer gardens in one easy recipe. Walnut and cream cheese sandwich turned the hearty flavor of toasted nuts into a satisfying spread by folding them into whipped cream cheese until the texture became both rich and slightly crunchy. A drizzle of honey was sometimes added for a hint of sweetness, but the main appeal was the deep, nutty taste paired with smooth, tangy cheese. This sandwich gained popularity in the 1930s and 40s, when walnuts were inexpensive and widely available through local farms and victory gardens. It became a staple of afternoon teas and church socials where hosts sought recipes that were both frugal and impressive. The combination provided protein and healthy fats, which made it as nourishing as it was tasty, served on brown bread or whole wheat. It offered a rustic contrast to the refined tea sandwiches of the era. Though modern menus rarely feature it, the walnut and cream cheese sandwich remains a charming example of simple ingredients delivering a memorable and wholesome lunch. Molasses crisped apples brought warmth and sweetness to any meal, even when dessert was not on the menu. Thinly sliced apples were tossed in a skillet with a pat of butter, then drizzled with dark molasses and cooked just long enough to soften and brown the edges. The sugar caramelized quickly, coating the fruit in a deep, sticky glaze that smelled like a fall kitchen even in spring. It was a fast way to turn bruised or boring apples into something comforting. Kids loved it because it was sweet. Adults loved it because it felt indulgent without wasting anything. You could eat them alone, serve them over toast, or spoon them next to porridge. If you had access to cream or cottage cheese, even better. Molasses was far cheaper than refined sugar and often used as a substitute in rural homes. And because it had iron and minerals, it was even thought to be strengthening, which gave parents a reason to serve this more often than not. It was simple, rich, and very 1920s. Homemade, humble, and ready in under 10 minutes. Tomato and cottage cheese plate was a dish that reflected both thrift and the diet trends of the mid-20th century. Cookbooks often included it in sections on light suppers or summer meals because it was inexpensive, quick, and required no cooking at all. The recipe was straightforward: thick slices of ripe tomato arranged neatly on a plate and topped with a scoop of cottage cheese, sometimes sprinkled with pepper or paprika for color. It looked wholesome, tasted refreshing, and was considered fashionable during years when calorie-conscious meals were gaining attention. Families who grew tomatoes in their gardens could put together the dish in under 10 minutes, making it both practical and nutritious. Cottage cheese was prized for its protein, and when paired with tomatoes, it made a plate that satisfied without feeling heavy. Though simple, it often appeared at luncheons and gatherings because its bright colors gave it visual appeal. It was the kind of dish that proved old cookbooks valued simplicity just as much as ingenuity. Quick pickled cucumber relish was a staple condiment of mid-century American kitchens, cherished for its bright tang and crisp texture. This simple recipe involved thinly slicing fresh cucumbers and marinating them in a mixture of vinegar, sugar, and salt, sometimes enhanced with spices like mustard seed or dill. The relish was ready to serve after a brief soaking, offering a refreshing burst of flavor that complemented sandwiches, grilled meats, and cold cuts. Its tangy sweetness and crunchy bite made it an ideal accompaniment to heavier dishes, balancing richness with acidity. Popular at barbecues and family dinners, this quick pickled cucumber relish was easy to prepare, required no cooking, and could be stored for several days. Its versatility and convenience fit perfectly with the fast-paced cooking style of the 1960s, making it a go-to addition for home cooks. Though the rise of commercial condiments has lessened its everyday presence, this homemade relish remains a nostalgic reminder of simple, flavorful accompaniments that elevated ordinary meals. Quick brown butter popcorn transformed an everyday snack into something worthy of a special church outing. Fresh popcorn was popped in a heavy stovetop pan until every kernel burst into a fluffy cloud. Meanwhile, butter was melted slowly until it turned a deep, nutty brown, releasing an aroma that drew children and adults alike to the kitchen door. The hot popcorn was tossed in the fragrant butter and dusted with a generous spoon of sugar, which caramelized slightly on the warm kernels, coating them in a delicate sweet crust. Some cooks added a pinch of salt to sharpen the flavor, while others relied solely on the natural sweetness of the brown butter. Served in paper cones or simple bowls, it filled the air with a rich, toasty scent that mingled with the smoke of outdoor grills and the sound of gospel singing. This treat required only a few ingredients and a few minutes, yet it felt indulgent and festive, reminding everyone that a little care in the kitchen could elevate even the most ordinary pantry staples into something worth sharing under the open sky of a summer picnic afternoon. Corned beef and coleslaw sandwich was a satisfying precursor to the modern Reuben, combining sliced corned beef with a mound of creamy, tangy coleslaw between sturdy rye bread for a lunch that was both hearty and refreshing. Jewish delis in New York and other cities popularized it during the 1920s-40s when customers wanted generous portions without a high price. The savory saltiness of the beef paired perfectly with the crisp cabbage and light dressing of the slaw, creating a balance that pleased both workers on quick lunch breaks and families seeking an easy dinner. It was less heavy than today's melted cheese versions, but every bit as flavorful, easy to prepare in advance. It held up well for picnics or train journeys, making it a practical choice for travelers over time. The Reuben with Swiss cheese and dressing overshadowed this simpler cousin, but the corned beef and coleslaw sandwich still represents an era of straightforward deli fare that deserves to be remembered and enjoyed again. Creamed peas on toast turned a bag of frozen peas and a little flour into a fast dinner that warmed the evening. Butter melted in a skillet while a spoonful of flour was whisked in to make a smooth roux. Then milk streamed in to form a creamy sauce. The peas went straight from freezer to pan, bright green against the pale gravy as they softened and released their sweetness. Thick slices of bread toasted in the same pan or under a quick broiler became the foundation, soaking up the sauce while staying crisp at the edges. A sprinkle of black pepper and a pinch of nutmeg gave the dish surprising depth, proof that simple pantry ingredients could still feel indulgent. Families loved how it filled plates in less than 10 minutes and cost almost nothing, making it a dependable weeknight standby. Children liked the mild flavor and the fun of cutting through the soft bread with a fork, while adults found comfort in its quiet, creamy richness. One bite carried the memory of suppers built on thrift and ingenuity, a reminder that speed and satisfaction can share the same plate when time and money are scarce, but hunger is real. Cold potato and pickle salad was everything the name promised: cheap, fast, and just sharp enough to wake you up. Chopped boiled potatoes, often left over from the night before, were tossed with diced pickles and sometimes onions in a mustard-based dressing. There was no mayo in most versions, though families who could afford it might add a little for creaminess. This dish came together fast and was served cold, making it perfect for summer meals, picnics, or quick lunches. The pickles added salt and crunch, the potatoes added bulk, and the dressing brought the whole thing to life. It was a no-cook wonder, ideal for busy families or days when the stove just could not be used. Some homemakers even kept a bowl of this on hand in the icebox, ready to scoop and serve with bread or cold meat. It was not glamorous, but it was reliable, and it filled out a plate without breaking the budget. That was the thing about 1920s cooking. You did not need much, just a little know-how and a good eye for leftovers. Rice pudding stovetop shortcut was one of the most beloved examples of transforming leftovers into dessert without fuss. Instead of starting with raw rice and waiting for it to cook slowly, thrifty cooks simply reheated already cooked rice in a saucepan with milk sugar and a hint of vanilla or nutmeg. The heat thickened the mixture almost instantly, and within minutes you had a pudding that was creamy, warm, and comforting. This trick was praised in countless cookbooks because it turned scraps of rice from last night's supper into a sweet dish for today. Families enjoyed it hot or cold, and it could be stretched even further by adding raisins or cinnamon when available. It was especially popular in lean times when every grain of rice had to be used wisely. The stovetop version required no baking and almost no waiting, which made it perfect for busy homemakers. What might have otherwise gone to waste became a cherished treat, showing how resourcefulness could turn something simple into something delightful. Quick pickled onion rings were a tangy and crunchy addition to many 1960s sandwiches and salads, made by soaking thin red onion slices in a simple vinegar brine. This speedy pickling process softened the onion's bite while preserving their vibrant color and crisp texture. The resulting rings added sharp acidity and a refreshing crunch that brightened heavier dishes and complemented cold cuts and burgers. Popular at picnics, barbecues, and casual family meals, these pickled onion rings could be prepared in just minutes and stored for later use. Their ease of preparation and bold flavor aligned with the mid-century preference for quick, flavorful condiments that enhanced simple foods. While pickled onions remain popular today, this particular quick pickling method evokes a nostalgic approach to homemade, tangy toppings that defined 1960s American cooking. Ranchero bean tostadas brought the lively spirit of a cantina to the weeknight table using only a few ingredients. Crisp corn tortillas toasted under the broiler formed a sturdy base for creamy refried beans straight from the can, warmed with a dash of cumin and a spoonful of diced tomatoes. A quick sprinkle of shredded cheddar melted under the heat, creating a golden crust that held everything together. Fresh salsa, sliced jalapenos, and a handful of chopped cilantro added color and brightness, turning a simple pantry meal into a vibrant feast. In less than 15 minutes, each tostada emerged hot and ready, inviting everyone to add their favorite toppings like sour cream or diced avocado. The crunchy base and savory beans offered a satisfying contrast that pleased both children and adults, proving that meatless dinners can still feel indulgent and filling. Every bite carried smoky spice and fresh garden flavor, perfect for nights when time was short, but a craving for bold taste remained strong, making this dish a regular star in kitchens that celebrated speed and flavor in equal measure. Creamed sardines on toast were the working man's comfort food, no doubt about it. You took canned sardines, packed in oil or water, mashed them lightly, and stirred them into a quick white sauce of butter, flour, and milk. The sauce softened the strong flavor and made the fish feel richer than it actually was. Then you ladled the warm mixture over toast, maybe sprinkled on some pepper or parsley if you had it, and called it a meal. It was salty, creamy, and full of protein, exactly what families needed when meat was hard to come by. Sardines were cheap and nutritious, and they had the benefit of being shelf-stable in a time when fresh fish was a luxury for coastal towns only. Rural families stocked up on them, and this was one of the fastest ways to turn a humble can into something hearty. If you were lucky, you would get a slice of tomato or onion on the side. But even without extras, creamed sardines hit the spot, and they were on the table in under 10 minutes, which made them one of the most dependable dishes of the time. Carrot and raisin sandwich offered a cheerful burst of color and natural sweetness by mixing finely grated carrots with plump raisins in a light mayonnaise. Dressing the carrots provided a gentle crunch, while the raisins added juicy pops of flavor, creating a balanced filling that appealed to both children and adults. This sandwich gained popularity in the 1940s and 50s, when root vegetables and dried fruit were easy to store and inexpensive to buy. Community cookbooks praised it for its nutrition and bright appearance, making it a favorite for school lunches and church picnics. Some cooks stirred in a dash of cinnamon or lemon juice for a playful twist, but the classic version remained simple and refreshing. Although it rarely appears on modern menus, the carrot and raisin sandwich proves that a few wholesome ingredients can create a meal that is vibrant, tasty, and surprisingly satisfying even without meat or fancy seasoning to elevate it. Long after the jars were empty, people remembered that simple blend of tangy dairy and golden cereal as proof that even breakfast could be turned into a festive drink for friends and family. Cottage cheese snowballs brought a cool touch of sweetness to tables already heavy with pies and cobblers. Soft cottage cheese was whipped with powdered sugar and a dash of vanilla until smooth, then rolled into bite-sized spheres that were chilled until firm. Each ball was rolled in a blanket of fine coconut flakes, transforming them into snowy little treats that glistened under the picnic shelter lights. Some cooks tucked a hidden cherry or pecan half inside for a surprise bite, while others left them pure and creamy. They required no baking, no stove, and barely any cleanup, making them ideal for busy church ladies preparing for a crowd. Children loved the way the coconut stuck to their fingers, and adults appreciated the not-too-sweet flavor that paired well with coffee or iced tea. Packed in wax paper-lined tins, the snowballs stayed cool for hours, even on hot afternoons, offering a refreshing finish after plates of fried chicken and potato salad. Each bite felt like a small celebration of simplicity, proof that a few humble ingredients could create a memorable dessert with both charm and comfort. Green pepper and cheese sandwich brought a satisfying crunch to the simple lunch plates of mid-century. America raw green pepper rings were layered onto slices of buttered bread and topped with a generous spread of sharp cheese. The contrast of crisp vegetables and creamy dairy created a refreshing combination that was both affordable and filling. Families appreciated how garden peppers stayed fresh for days, without refrigeration, making them a dependable choice for school lunches and quick suppers. This sandwich appeared in community cookbooks of the 1940s, where homemakers shared recipes that stretched ingredients during rationing efforts. Farmers enjoyed it during the harvest season when peppers were abundant and inexpensive, while children found the bright color and mild spice exciting. Compared to plainer fare, its straightforward preparation required no cooking, which made it perfect for hot summer evenings, when turning on the stove was unthinkable. Even though it has faded from modern menus, the green pepper and cheese sandwich remains a crisp reminder of resourceful American home cooking. Beef and onion sandwich spread proved that deli leftovers could turn into a hearty supper in almost no time. Thin slices of roast beef, whether from a weekend dinner or the grocery counter, were chopped fine and folded into a bowl of mayonnaise and diced onions. A splash of Worcestershire sauce and a pinch of black pepper added depth, while the onions provided crunch and a sharp bite. The mixture chilled for just a few minutes while bread toasted and plates were set, Then it was piled thick between slices of rye or soft white sandwich bread. Some families liked a layer of crisp lettuce for freshness, while others spooned the spread onto crackers for an easy snack that still felt like a meal. It stretched a small amount of beef into several servings, saving both time and money while still tasting indulgent. Each bite combined creamy texture with savory meat and a gentle onion heat, the kind of simple pleasure that keeps everyone coming back for seconds. Quick to make, rich to eat, this spread turned odds and ends into a dinner worth remembering, proving that thrift and flavor can happily share the same table. Potted cheese spread was what you made when the cheese drawer looked empty. You took whatever bits you had left, cheddar, Swiss, or even something soft, and mashed them up with butter until smooth. Then you added seasonings, mustard, paprika, maybe a little onion if you were bold. The result was a creamy, tangy spread you could use on crackers, toast, or sandwiches. It took 5 minutes to mix and even less to appreciate. This was poor man's pâté, and it was surprisingly common in 1920s households that valued resourcefulness. You might see it in tea rooms, served alongside olives and celery sticks, or in lunchboxes, spread between slices of dark rye. Nothing went to waste, especially not cheese, which cost too much to throw out. This dish could be made in big batches and kept chilled for several days. It was humble, yes, but it had flavor. And most importantly, it stretched a little cheese into something that felt like much more. That was the whole point of potted cheese, to remind you that smart cooking could be just as satisfying as rich cooking. Cabbage slaw with vinegar dressing was a staple in old cookbooks because it could be thrown together in minutes with only a handful of ingredients. Shredded cabbage was sprinkled with sugar, doused with vinegar, and left to soften slightly before serving. The tangy dressing contrasted with the crunch of the raw cabbage, creating a side dish that was both refreshing and filling. Many homemakers loved this recipe because it made use of a vegetable that was cheap, hearty, and often stored for long periods in root cellars. It was also endlessly adaptable, with onions, peppers, or even carrots sometimes added for extra color and flavor. Unlike mayonnaise-based slaws that came later, the vinegar version was more practical for picnics, church suppers, and potlucks since it did not spoil as quickly. Families appreciated its crisp taste on hot days, and it paired easily with meats, sandwiches, or fried foods. In kitchens where stretching ahead of cabbage could mean several meals, this recipe was a reliable friend. It was thrifty, bright, and a reminder that flavor did not have to come from expensive ingredients. The slaw was simple but never plain, and that is why it was written into so many cookbooks of the past. Grape and cheese salad was a sweet and savory cold dish that combined juicy, fresh grapes with cubes of sharp cheddar cheese and a touch of mayonnaise for added creaminess. This salad was a common favorite at family gatherings, potlucks, and holiday meals throughout the 1960s, appreciated for its unique blend of contrasting flavors and simple, quick assembly. The natural sweetness of the grapes perfectly balanced the tangy, robust flavor of the cheddar cheese, while the mayonnaise provided a smooth texture that brought all the elements together. Often served chilled on a bed of crisp lettuce or alongside other cold dishes, this recipe exemplified the era's fondness for pairing sweet fruits with savory ingredients in cold salads and appetizers. While it may seem unusual to modern tastes, grape and cheese salad remains a nostalgic symbol of inventive and approachable mid-century American cooking. It highlights the creativity and resourcefulness of home cooks who sought to create tasty dishes that were both convenient and visually appealing, capturing the comforting spirit of quick recipes from the 1960s. Tomato and peanut soup brought a hearty yet thrifty option to the meal. Canned tomato soup was heated slowly with a spoonful of creamy peanut butter stirred in until it melted into a silky base. A pinch of cayenne or black pepper added gentle heat, while chopped onions or celery provided texture. The combination created a surprising depth of flavor, bright tomato balanced by the nutty richness of peanuts, that felt both comforting and exotic. This soup could be served hot on cool evenings or chilled for a refreshing lunch, making it flexible for year-round gatherings. It stretched ingredients beautifully, feeding many with just a few pantry staples, which made it a favorite among church cooks, mindful of budget and time. Served with crusty bread or simple crackers, It provided a protein boost that sustained singers and storytellers well into the evening. Guests often asked for the recipe, amazed at how two everyday ingredients could create something so unique and satisfying while reflecting the ingenuity of African American kitchens. Tomato aspic sandwich brought a dramatic look to the table with bright red gelled tomato slices set carefully on buttered toast triangles. For a combination that was cool, tangy, and visually striking, the savory aspic carried the essence of ripe tomatoes, mixed with a gentle seasoning of celery salt and lemon juice, creating a delicate flavor that surprised first-time tasters popular at mid-century luncheons and cocktail parties. It offered a sophisticated alternative to heavier meats and cheeses, and could be prepared a day ahead to free hosts from last-minute work. Guests admired the jewel-like appearance and refreshing bite, especially during warm weather gatherings. While tomato aspic has mostly disappeared from modern menus, it remains a testament to the creativity of cooks who turned basic vegetable juice and gelatin into a centerpiece sandwich, proving that presentation and taste can be achieved with modest ingredients and a touch of patience. Pineapple and cheese canapés were the darlings of quick party food. Take a canned pineapple ring or chunk, top it with cream cheese or a cube of cheddar, and serve it cold with a toothpick. Done. Colorful, quirky, and ready in 10 minutes. These little bites showed up in tea rooms and luncheons during the 1920s, when canned fruit was becoming more common and refrigeration was still catching up. Pineapple had an exotic charm, sweet, golden, and seen as a luxury from faraway places. Paired with the saltiness of cheese, it made for a surprisingly balanced bite. These canapés were often served on crackers or toast, but more often they were just stacked and speared. Housewives clipped the recipe from magazines which called them elegant and economical. They worked just as well for guests as they did for family suppers. And while the combination sounds odd to us now, in the 1920s it was considered stylish. Simple, fast, and oddly fancy, it checked all the boxes. Boston lettuce with French dressing was one of the quickest salads to prepare, but it carried a sense of refinement that appealed to homemakers who wanted meals to feel special. The recipe called for tender leaves of Boston lettuce arranged in a bowl and drizzled with a simple dressing of oil, vinegar, salt, and mustard. Sometimes a dash of paprika or sugar was added to adjust the flavor, but the appeal was always in the freshness of the lettuce paired with the sharp tang of the dressing. Old cookbooks encouraged serving this salad at luncheons or as the first course at dinner because it added color and a touch of elegance without requiring more than 5 minutes of work. Families appreciated its lightness, especially during warmer months when heavy foods were less welcome. The recipe reflected the growing popularity of salads in mid-century cooking, when health and presentation were becoming more important. Boston lettuce with French dressing was quick, thrifty, and stylish all at once. Honey mustard ham wraps were a speedy, flavorful handheld snack consisting of thin slices of ham rolled with honey mustard and fresh lettuce, perfect for lunch or light bites. This 10-minute recipe combined the sweet tang of honey mustard with savory ham and crisp greens, offering a balanced taste that was both satisfying and easy to prepare. Popular during the 1960s when convenience and flavor were equally important, these wraps could be assembled quickly with minimal ingredients and no cooking required. They were perfect for packed lunches, casual gatherings, or buffet tables. This recipe reflected the era's increasing interest in portable, ready-to-eat foods that did not sacrifice taste. While modern wraps have evolved with a variety of fillings and sauces, honey mustard ham wraps remain a classic example of quick and delicious mid-century recipes designed to please busy families and entertaining hosts alike. Buttermilk and cornflake smoothie surprised everyone with its creamy tang and subtle crunch, a quick breakfast drink that traveled easily to an early morning picnic. Tangy buttermilk was poured into a tall glass blender with a drizzle of honey, a pinch of nutmeg, and a handful of crisp cornflakes. As the blade spun, the cereal softened slightly, yet left tiny flecks that gave each sip a playful texture. Some cooks added ripe banana or a splash of vanilla for extra body, while others kept it plain to let the buttermilk shine. Served in chilled mason jars, the smoothie offered a nourishing start that felt like a cross between a milkshake and a classic Southern cereal bowl. Children delighted in the gentle sweetness and the faint crunch that lingered after every gulp. It was a clever way to stretch pantry staples and make something special when time was short and the churchyard was already filling with song. Shrimp and grits. Quick Bowl delivered coastal comfort with pantry convenience, turning pre-cooked shrimp and instant grits into a 10-minute feast. Water boiled while butter melted in a skillet, where garlic and a pinch of paprika released a smoky aroma. The shrimp, already cooked and cleaned, were tossed in the sizzling butter until warmed through and lightly seasoned with lemon juice. Instant grits whisked in another pot thickened in minutes, creamy and soft with a touch of salt. The hot grits were spooned into bowls and topped with the buttery shrimp and their flavorful drippings. A sprinkle of chopped green onions or parsley added a fresh finish. Despite the short cooking time, the dish tasted like a slow weekend brunch by the shore. Families loved how it brought a touch of luxury to a busy weeknight, proving that quick meals could still feel special and deeply satisfying when simple ingredients were treated with care and attention. Orange cream sandwich brought a gentle dessert-like sweetness to the lunch table by blending fresh orange zest and juice with softened cream cheese until the filling became light, fragrant, and smooth spread between thin slices of white bread. It offered a citrus burst that brightened afternoon teas and school lunches alike. Families loved its refreshing flavor during warm weather and appreciated how quickly it could be prepared using only basic ingredients. Women's magazines of the 1940s praised it as a way to add variety to children's meals without extra cost, while adults enjoyed it as a simple treat. After a light supper, its cheerful color and delicate aroma made it a favorite for spring gatherings, and it often appeared alongside lemonade and sponge cake on picnic blankets. Although it has largely disappeared from modern kitchens, the orange cream sandwich stands as a testament to the creativity of home cooks who could transform everyday fruit and dairy into something quietly delightful and memorable. Shredded carrot and raisin salad was a bright little bowl of sunshine on a plate. You took raw carrots, grated them fine, and tossed them with plump raisins and a light dressing made from vinegar or lemon juice, sometimes with a bit of sugar or honey. That was it. Served chilled or room temperature, it was crunchy, sweet, and just a little tangy, an easy contrast to heavier dishes. It showed up in women's magazines, potluck tables, and school lunches alike. Housewives liked it because it was fast and healthy. Kids liked it because it was sweet enough to eat without complaint. Carrots were cheap, kept well, and were available most of the year. Raisins added natural sugar and needed no refrigeration. Together, they made a salad that was ready in under 10 minutes with nothing more than a bowl and a fork. No boiling, no baking, just clean, simple prep and a whole lot of color. In a decade obsessed with molded salads and gelatin towers, this one kept things grounded and tasty. It was a quick win in kitchens that needed a little brightness fast. Creamed mushrooms on toast was one of those quick dishes that walked the line between supper and snack, making it a favorite in countless households. The mushrooms were sliced thin, sautéed briefly, and folded into a simple white sauce of butter, flour, and milk. When spooned over thick slices of toasted bread, the mixture became creamy, savory, and filling without needing meat. Families leaned on this recipe during lean years, since mushrooms were often foraged or inexpensive when canned. Old cookbooks praised it as both speedy and sophisticated, especially when served with parsley or paprika sprinkled on top for presentation. The texture of creamy sauce soaking into toast gave it a satisfying richness that made it feel more substantial than the ingredients might suggest. Housewives appreciated the balance of thrift and comfort, and children enjoyed the warm, earthy taste of the mushrooms paired with soft bread. It was the kind of recipe that fit neatly into the rhythm of everyday life, quick to make, versatile to serve, and dependable in taste. In kitchens that valued speed and satisfaction, creamed mushrooms on toast was a quiet star. Chilled tomato gazpacho shots were a refreshing and flavorful cold appetizer that offered a taste of Mediterranean cuisine adapted to American kitchens in the 1960s. This recipe blended fresh tomatoes with cucumber, bell pepper, garlic, and seasonings into a smooth, chilled soup served in small shot glasses or appetizer cups. Gazpacho's cool temperature and vibrant, tangy flavor made it an ideal starter for summer meals and dinner parties, providing a light and healthy option before the main course. The quick blending process meant the dish could be prepared in 10 minutes or less, fitting the growing desire for fast yet impressive recipes. These tomato gazpacho shots showcased the era's interest in international flavors and novel presentations that elevated simple ingredients. Though gazpacho is more widely known today, serving it in shot-sized portions remains a charming retro way to enjoy this classic cold soup. This recipe reminds us of the 1960s fascination with global cuisine and stylish entertaining made easy. Quick-fried bananas were a sweet indulgence that required no more than a hot pan and a pat of butter. You sliced ripe bananas down the middle or into coins, then laid them in a skillet with butter and a dusting of sugar. A few minutes on each side, and the bananas would soften and caramelize, forming a golden crust that smelled like candy and felt like breakfast. Some folks added cinnamon, others a splash of lemon juice. If you had cream or yogurt, you could serve them on top, but even on their own, they were a treat. Bananas were more affordable than most fruits in the 1920s thanks to expanding trade, and people were always looking for new ways to use them. Fried bananas were quick, warm, and a clever way to salvage fruit that was just a day too ripe for eating raw. They showed up at breakfast tables, dessert trays, and sometimes tucked between slices of bread for a fast, sticky sandwich. It was not fancy, but it was fast. And when food had to stretch, quick treats like this reminded you that the kitchen could still be a happy place. Chicken fried rice with canned chicken delivered a satisfying stir-fry that used pantry staples to create takeout flavor in record time. Day-old rice separated beautifully in a hot skillet coated with a thin film of oil, each grain absorbing the smoky heat. Diced onions, carrots, and peas added color and sweetness, sizzling as they released their fragrance. A can of cooked chicken provided tender meat with no extra prep, breaking apart into savory shreds that mingled with the vegetables. A quick splash of soy sauce and a sprinkle of garlic powder tied everything together, while scrambled eggs folded in at the end brought richness and body. The result was a meal that tasted carefully crafted yet came together in less than 15 minutes, perfect for evenings when energy ran low but appetites ran high. Families loved how it stretched a small amount of protein across several generous portions while clearing the fridge of leftover rice. Each spoonful offered the comfort of home and the excitement of a restaurant favorite, a reminder that great flavor does not require a long list of fresh ingredients when skill and heat meet simple planning. Sardine and onion sandwich offered a bold oceanic flavor that thrived during an era when tinned fish was an affordable source of protein. Families opened small cans of sardines packed in oil and layered them over slices of hearty brown bread, adding thin rounds of raw onion for a pungent bite. Coastal communities embraced this sandwich for its convenience, while inland households appreciated the long shelf life of preserved fish. The natural oils soaked into the bread, creating a rich texture that required no additional spread. Fishermen often carried it as a portable meal that could withstand long hours at sea, while factory workers found it a quick and sustaining lunch. Despite its strong aroma, it became a beloved staple in many immigrant neighborhoods where similar flavors were common. The pairing of briny fish and sharp onion may seem intense today, but it represents the straightforward, hearty meals that once defined American working-class kitchens. Maple-flavored sweet potato cakes filled the air with the scent of warm syrup and earthy roots. Instant mashed sweet potatoes were combined with a splash of milk, a dusting of cinnamon, and a drizzle of maple flavoring to form a smooth batter. Small scoops of this mixture were dropped onto a hot griddle and flattened gently with the back of a spoon. Within minutes, the cakes developed a golden crust while remaining tender inside. A quick brush of melted butter and a second drizzle of maple syrup created a glistening glaze that caught the afternoon sunlight. These cakes were hearty enough to serve as a main dish or as a sweet side alongside fried chicken and collard greens. Children loved their pancake-like texture, and adults appreciated how fast and affordable they were to make. They proved that even instant ingredients could become something special when guided by skilled hands and a desire to nourish a community gathered in faith and fellowship beneath the wide blue sky of a summer afternoon. Cucumber and radish salad with dill was a crisp, refreshing cold salad that became a favorite in the 1960s for its vibrant flavors and ease of preparation. Thinly sliced cucumbers and radishes were tossed with fresh dill and dressed lightly with vinegar, sugar, and sometimes a touch of sour cream or mayonnaise. This combination created a balance of cool, peppery, and herbal notes that complemented summer meals and barbecues beautifully. Served chilled, this salad was a quick 10-minute recipe that added brightness and texture to the dinner table, providing a healthy vegetable side with minimal fuss. Its simplicity and fresh ingredients reflected the era's growing appreciation for quick, garden-fresh dishes that could be prepared without lengthy cooking. Though less common today, cucumber and radish salad with dill remains a nostalgic and tasty example of mid-century cold vegetable salads designed to refresh and complement heartier foods. Mock apple pie with crackers was one of the most clever Depression-era tricks to ever appear in print. When apples were scarce or expensive, cooks would take soda crackers, sugar, water, cinnamon, and lemon juice to recreate the flavor and texture of apple filling. The crackers softened in the syrupy mixture and remarkably resembled tender apple slices once baked. Covered with a simple pie crust, the result looked and tasted enough like real apple pie that many guests never suspected the difference. Best of all, it could be made in about 10 minutes of active work, since the filling came together on the stovetop in no time. Cookbooks praised it as a marvel of resourcefulness, and it became a household favorite during times when true fruit pies were out of reach. Few recipes show the ingenuity of old cookbooks better than this one. Steak tips with garlic butter turned small pieces of beef into a dinner that tasted far more luxurious than the clock allowed. Bite-sized cubes of steak were seasoned with salt and pepper, then seared quickly in a smoking hot skillet until browned on the outside and just tender within. As the meat rested for a moment, butter melted in the pan with minced garlic and a handful of fresh parsley, creating a sauce that smelled like a steakhouse. The sizzling butter was poured back over the meat, coating every piece in rich, garlicky flavor. Served over toast, rice, or even plain with a side of vegetables, the dish offered restaurant-style indulgence in the time it took to set the table. Families loved how a modest amount of beef could feel like a feast, and the sound of butter hitting the hot pan became a signal that the day's work was over and something delicious was ready. Spinach and egg sandwich combined earthy greens with satisfying protein by mixing chopped cooked spinach and diced hard-boiled eggs in a mustard dressing that tied everything together. This nourishing blend offered a mellow bite with a subtle tang, perfect for quick lunches or light suppers. Families embraced it during the rationing years when eggs and garden spinach were affordable staples that delivered essential nutrients without great cost. The sandwich traveled well wrapped in wax paper and remained tasty at room temperature, making it ideal for workers and school children alike. A touch of black pepper or grated onion could be added for extra zest, but many preferred the pure, straightforward flavors that defined home cooking of the 1940s, though modern cafes rarely feature it. The spinach and egg sandwich reflects an era when simple, wholesome ingredients came together to create meals that were as practical as they were flavorful, offering a lesson in timeless kitchen economy. Raspberry vinegar. Spritzer refreshed thirsty guests with a balance of sweet fruit and tangy bite that felt both old-fashioned and new. Church ladies steeped fresh raspberries in cider vinegar and sugar for several days, creating a ruby-red shrub syrup that sparkled like stained glass in the sunlight. When picnic day arrived, they strained the mixture and poured it over tall glasses of crushed ice, then topped each serving with cool well water or fizzy mineral water. The first sip was brisk and lively, tart enough to wake the senses yet mellowed by the natural sweetness of the berries. Children loved the jewel color, while adults appreciated how the drink cut through the richness of fried chicken and buttery casseroles spread across the tables. Because it required only a few ingredients and could be made well ahead, it became a trusted recipe for gatherings where people lingered for hours in the summer heat. It carried the gentle memory of colonial shrubs and old kitchen wisdom, a link between generations that reminded everyone how simple ingredients could create something remarkable and worth passing on with pride. Tomato jelly sandwiches were not meant to be sweet. These were not breakfast jams. Tomato jelly was savory, made by boiling tomato juice with vinegar, salt, and just enough gelatin to hold its shape. It was poured into molds, chilled, and sliced like meat. Then it was layered between bread, sometimes with lettuce, sometimes with mayonnaise or cream cheese, always served cold. The texture was curious, but the flavor was sharp and bright. Molded foods were popular in the 1920s, and gelatin was no longer a luxury. Recipes like this showed off clever presentation and stretched ingredients farther. These sandwiches were ideal for picnics and hot days when turning on the stove was not an option. Strange by today's standards, but in their time, they made perfect sense. Hot dog roll-ups were a favorite kid-friendly snack throughout the 1960s, consisting of hot dogs wrapped in crescent roll dough and baked to golden perfection. This quick recipe brought together the comforting familiarity of hot dogs with the flaky texture of crescent rolls, creating an easy-to-handle finger food loved at parties and lunchboxes alike. The rolls were assembled in minutes, making them a practical solution for parents needing fast and tasty snacks. The appeal of this dish lay not just in its flavor but also in its fun presentation, as the wrapped hot dogs resembled miniature pastries that children eagerly devoured. It captured the era's spirit of convenience and family-focused cooking, combining processed foods in clever ways to satisfy busy schedules. Though homemade versions have become less common with the rise of commercial snack foods, hot dog roll-ups remain a nostalgic emblem of quick and simple 1960s comfort food. Horseradish and beet spread was bold, magenta-colored, and not afraid to clear your sinuses. Grated cooked beets were stirred together with freshly grated horseradish root and folded into sour cream. The result was a spicy, earthy, slightly sweet spread that worked wonders on rye bread or crackers. Served cold, it was a common part of 1920s appetizer plates and cold lunches, especially among Eastern European households where both ingredients were staples. The beets provided color and body, while the horseradish added heat that hit the nose before the tongue. It came together fast, needing no cooking, just mixing and chilling. If fresh horseradish was not available, the jarred kind worked fine. Some recipes added vinegar, others sugar, depending on what was on hand. But even the most stripped-down version had personality. This was not a quiet little tea sandwich filling. It announced itself. And for people who were tired of bland or plain, it was a wake-up call. In homes where meals had to be stretched, this spread offered bold flavor in small bites. You did not need much, just enough to remember it. Peach and cottage cheese. Sandwich captured the cheerful sweetness of summer with canned peaches mashed gently into creamy cottage cheese for a filling that was both refreshing and satisfying. This mixture was spooned onto soft white bread, sometimes chilled beforehand for extra coolness. On hot days, the mild tang of the cottage cheese balanced the syrupy fruit, creating a flavor that felt indulgent without being heavy. Families discovered this recipe during the 1940s when canned fruit became a pantry staple and cottage cheese was celebrated for its protein content, making the sandwich both economical and nourishing. It was especially popular for picnics and garden lunches because it traveled well and stayed pleasant even without refrigeration. The peach and cottage cheese sandwich remains a sunny reminder of how simple ingredients could brighten a table and bring a taste of warm weather to any meal year-round. Savory banana croquettes surprised picnic guests with a mix of gentle sweetness and light savory notes that turned a humble fruit into something remarkable. Ripe bananas were mashed with a pinch of salt and black pepper, then blended with fresh breadcrumbs and a spoonful of minced onion for a subtle bite. Small ovals were formed by hand, rolled in more crumbs, and fried in a shallow skillet until each croquette turned golden and crisp. The coating stayed delicately crunchy while the center remained soft and naturally sweet, a contrast that paired beautifully with roasted meats or a spoonful of spicy relish. Served warm on simple plates, these croquettes invited conversation as everyone tried to guess the unexpected ingredient hidden within. They proved that a common fruit could shine as a savory dish when seasoned with care, showing the creativity of church cooks who were never afraid to mix the familiar with the surprising to feed a joyful crowd. Patty melt on rye delivered diner flavor in a fraction of the time, making it a favorite among families who craved something special after a long shift. Ground beef was quickly shaped into thin patties and pressed flat on a hot griddle until sizzling and browned. Meanwhile, onions sliced paper-thin softened in butter until golden and sweet, their aroma drifting through the kitchen. Slices of rye bread were spread with more butter, then layered with the beef, the onions, and generous slices of melty Swiss or American cheese. A few minutes back on the skillet brought everything together, the bread crisping as the cheese oozed around the edges. The result was a sandwich that tasted like a full diner meal, yet came together faster than any takeout order. Served with pickles or a handful of chips, the patty melt satisfied both hunger and the need for something comforting, proving that a fast dinner could still feel like a small luxury at the end of a demanding day. Pickled tongue on crackers may not sound like 10-minute food, but hear me out. The tongue itself was pickled ahead of time, sliced deli thin and kept chilled, usually in brine or vinegar. When it came time to eat, all you had to do was lay a few slices on buttered crackers or small toast rounds. That was it. No cooking, no fuss. Just a quick savory bite, served cold, with a flavor that leaned into sharp and salty. Beef tongue was not always considered awful in the 1920s. It was just another cut of meat. It showed up in sandwiches, soups, and yes, on crackers. Pickling it preserved the meat for longer periods and made it shelf-stable in homes that lacked strong refrigeration. It was often sliced so thin you could see the light through it, and that made a little go a long way. When paired with a dab of mustard or horseradish, it became a bite that was as bold as it was fast. Not everyone loved it, but the people who did swore by it. In a world where nothing could go to waste, even a tongue could become a delicacy, served in less than 10 minutes. Egg custard cups made on the stovetop were one of those clever recipes that made dessert possible even without an oven. Cookbooks instructed homemakers to whisk together eggs, milk, sugar, and a splash of vanilla, then pour the mixture into small cups and set them in a double boiler to steam. In less than 15 minutes, the custards firmed into silky, sweet servings that could be enjoyed warm or chilled. This recipe was especially practical in summer when turning on the oven was unpleasant. Families loved the smooth, creamy texture, and the portion-sized cups made it easy to serve at gatherings or for children. Sometimes nutmeg was sprinkled on top for flavor and decoration. Egg custard cups embodied the thrift and resourcefulness of vintage kitchens, using simple ingredients to create a dish that felt indulgent without requiring extra cost. They were proof that even the humblest pantry could produce something elegant. In homes that valued both speed and tradition, custard cups were always welcome. Tuna salad stuffed tomatoes were a colorful and nutritious 10-minute recipe featuring halved tomatoes filled with a quick tuna salad mixture, perfect for lunches or light dinners. The tuna salad was typically made by combining canned tuna with mayonnaise, chopped celery, onions, and seasonings, then spooned into hollowed tomato halves for a visually appealing presentation. This dish offered a refreshing balance of creamy, tangy tuna salad with the juicy, slightly acidic tomato, making it a satisfying yet light meal option. Popular in 1960s America, tuna salad stuffed tomatoes embodied the trend of combining convenience foods with fresh produce for speedy preparation. Served chilled, they were often enjoyed at picnics, buffets, or simple home meals. While less common today, this recipe remains a charming example of mid-century quick dishes that balance taste, nutrition, and ease. Prune and walnut pinwheels combined natural sweetness with hearty texture in a cookie that seemed far fancier than its humble origins. Pitted prunes were simmered briefly and mashed into a smooth paste, sweetened with a touch of honey and a splash of lemon juice. Chopped walnuts were stirred in for a pleasant crunch. This filling was spread across a sheet of tender pastry dough which was rolled tightly into a log and chilled until firm. Slices were cut into neat spirals and baked until golden brown, filling the air with a warm, fruity aroma. The finished pinwheels offered a balance of rich nuts and mellow fruit that paired beautifully with coffee or sweet tea. They packed well in tins lined with wax paper and stayed moist even after a day in the summer heat. Elders appreciated their old-world flavor, while younger guests enjoyed the pretty swirls and chewy bite. These cookies represented the care and creativity of home bakers who turned simple dried fruit and pantry staples into something elegant enough for any church gathering. Date and orange marmalade sandwich combined the deep caramel sweetness of cooked dates with the bright citrus zing of orange marmalade to create a filling that tasted like sunshine captured between two slices of wheat bread. Home cooks discovered it through women's magazines in the 1940s when sugar shortages made dates a practical, natural sweetener. The marmalade added a fragrant bitterness that balanced the richness of the dates, turning each bite into a layered experience of sweet tart and slightly bitter flavors, often served at afternoon teas and bridal showers. The sandwich brought a touch of elegance without expensive ingredients. Its vibrant color and unique taste impressed guests who expected plain fare, but instead found something sophisticated. It kept well without refrigeration, which made it ideal for picnics and train journeys. Though rarely seen today, the date and orange marmalade sandwich remains a reminder of a time when simple pantry staples could become a striking treat worthy of any gathering. Texas chili dog plate made a hearty, messy dinner that satisfied every craving after a long workday. Hot dogs sizzled in a skillet while a can of chili warmed on the stove with a spoonful of cumin and smoked paprika to deepen the flavor. Soft buns were split and toasted lightly, ready to hold the hot dogs as soon as they browned. The steaming chili was spooned generously over each dog, followed by shredded cheddar and a scatter of diced onions for bite. The smell of spice and smoke filled the kitchen, drawing everyone to the table before the last dog was dressed. Each plate was a cheerful mess, requiring extra napkins and rewarding every bite with a mix of textures and flavors. It was inexpensive, quick and filling, perfect for nights when there was little time but big appetites. The combination of tender bun, juicy sausage, and rich chili sauce made this simple dish a lasting favorite in households that valued both speed and flavor. Cracker mush might not sound glamorous, but for many families it was exactly what they needed. You crushed up a handful of saltine crackers, nothing fancy, just the basics, and simmered them gently in milk with a little salt. The mixture thickened in minutes into something warm, soft, and soothing, somewhere between porridge and pudding. It was often served to small children, elderly relatives, or anyone recovering from illness, but it also stood in as a quick dinner when groceries were running thin. The beauty of cracker mush was its adaptability. Some added sugar or cinnamon for a sweet twist, others stirred in bits of cheese or onion for something savory. It cooked in 5 to 7 minutes flat, needed just one pot, and came from ingredients every kitchen kept on hand. During the 1920s, when refrigeration was limited and waste was not an option, cracker mush was a way to make every crumb count. It might not be a showstopper, but it was dependable, comforting, and easy to love. Sometimes the most forgettable dishes are the ones that carried people through the hardest times. Celery Victor was a dish that proved even a humble vegetable like celery could be dressed up into something special. This recipe called for cooking celery stalks until just tender, then marinating them quickly in a vinaigrette of oil, vinegar, and herbs. Once chilled, the celery was served as a salad, often on lettuce leaves or with slices of hard-boiled egg for garnish. Old cookbooks promoted it as a sophisticated option, despite its modest ingredients, and it was sometimes featured in restaurants before making its way into home kitchens. Families appreciated how quickly it came together and how it made use of a vegetable that was often overlooked. Celery Victor was light, refreshing, and inexpensive, which made it perfect for luncheons, picnics, or summer suppers. It was the kind of recipe that elevated the ordinary with just a few simple steps. Though celery rarely takes center stage, this dish gave it a moment to shine in a thrifty and flavorful way. Chilled potato and green bean salad was a refreshing and popular vegetable side dish in 1960s America, made by combining boiled potatoes and green beans with a simple vinaigrette and serving it cold. This salad was especially favored during summer barbecues, picnics, and casual dinners because it provided a cool, light contrast to heavier grilled meats and rich main courses. The boiled potatoes offered a soft, comforting base that balanced well with the crisp, bright green beans, which added color and texture. The vinaigrette, typically made from vinegar, oil, and seasonings, brightened the dish without overpowering the fresh vegetables. Its tangy flavor helped cut through the richness of other dishes on the table, making it a perfect palate cleanser. The salad's quick preparation and ability to be made ahead of time made it especially practical for busy home cooks looking for easy but tasty side dishes. While modern potato salads often use creamy dressings, this lighter Tangier version remains a nostalgic reminder of mid-century American cuisine's preference for simple, vegetable-forward cold sides that complemented a variety of meals and seasons. Cornflake peanut clusters delivered a satisfying crunch that ended many picnics on a sweet note. Cornflakes were poured into a wide bowl, while peanut butter, sugar, and a splash of milk were heated together on the stovetop until smooth and bubbling. The hot mixture was poured over the cereal and stirred quickly to coat every flake before being dropped by spoonfuls onto wax paper. As the clusters cooled, they hardened into golden mounds that held their shape even in the warm afternoon sun. Each bite combined the nutty richness of peanut butter with the crisp texture of cornflakes, making them an instant favorite for children and adults alike. Because they required no baking and very little time, they became a go-to recipe for busy church members preparing food for large gatherings. The clusters could be made hours ahead and stayed fresh in simple tins, waiting to be shared after long conversations, hymns, and laughter beneath the shade of spreading oak trees. Pineapple cream cheese sandwich was a bright surprise in an era when winter fruit was rare, and often canned families would drain crushed pineapple until it was almost dry, then fold it gently into softened cream cheese to create a light tropical spread when placed between thin slices of crustless bread. It offered a refreshing contrast to the heavier savory meals of the 1950s. This sandwich appeared at baby showers, church potlucks, and summer picnics where its cheerful flavor reminded guests of faraway places. Many cooks added a touch of lemon juice to keep the filling tangy, and to balance the sweetness of the fruit. Children loved the mild sweetness, and adults appreciated how easy it was to prepare. Especially when other ingredients were hard to find, the mixture also stored well in a cool kitchen, so it could be made in the morning and served in the afternoon with no loss of texture. Even now, one bite of this soft and creamy blend can transport a person to those lively mid-century gatherings. Eggnog without alcohol was a quick way to make something feel like a celebration, even when there was not much to celebrate. You cracked a fresh egg into a bowl, beat it with milk, sugar, and a dash of nutmeg, then served it cold in a glass with maybe a sprinkle of cinnamon on top. No booze, no fuss. Just a rich, frothy drink that tasted like the holidays even in the middle of July. It was sweet, thick, and surprisingly filling, used as both a treat and a light meal. In the 1920s, fresh eggs and milk were still staples in most homes, especially in rural areas. Sugar was more precious but used sparingly here, making this drink both indulgent and economical. Kids loved it. Adults appreciated the comfort it brought without needing anything off the shelf. It could be whipped up in under 5 minutes, no heat required. And whether it was sipped slowly or gulped down, it left you feeling full, cozy, and cared for. Sometimes, a cold glass of eggnog was just the thing to remind you the world still had a little sweetness left. Oatmeal. Griddle cakes were born from the idea that nothing should go to waste, not even the cold pot of oatmeal left from breakfast. Cookbooks encouraged thrifty cooks to stir in a little flour, baking powder, and milk to form a thick batter that could be spooned onto a hot griddle. Within minutes, you had hearty cakes with a crisp outside and a tender inside. The beauty of this recipe was that it disguised leftovers as something entirely new. Families often topped them with syrup, molasses, or a pat of butter, and suddenly yesterday's porridge became today's satisfying lunch. These cakes were not only quick, but also surprisingly filling, which made them especially appealing during leaner times. For housewives looking to stretch every penny, turning scraps into something warm and comforting was not just resourceful, it was rewarding. This recipe captured that spirit perfectly. Cold asparagus and mayonnaise salad was a simple and refreshing side dish featuring tender asparagus spears tossed in a light mayonnaise-based dressing and chilled before serving. Popular in 1960s America, this salad was often served at summer picnics, dinner parties, and holiday meals as a cool counterpoint to richer entrees. The mayonnaise dressing, sometimes flavored with lemon juice or herbs, added creaminess that complemented the crisp yet delicate texture of fresh asparagus. This salad was prized for its ease of preparation and elegant presentation, often arranged on lettuce leaves or decorative plates. It fit perfectly into the 10-minute recipe trend, providing a fresh vegetable option that required minimal cooking or fuss. Although tastes have shifted toward vinaigrette-based dressings, cold asparagus salad remains a nostalgic favorite for those who appreciate classic, creamy vegetable sides that evoke the charm of 1960s dining. Turkey Club sandwich plate turned a deli standard into a full dinner that felt hearty and fresh. Triple layers of toasted bread held slices of roasted turkey, crisp bacon, ripe tomatoes, and crunchy lettuce, each tier spread with a thin layer of mayonnaise for tang. The stack was secured with toothpicks and sliced into neat quarters, revealing colorful layers that looked as good as they tasted. A side of potato chips or a handful of pickles completed the plate, adding crunch and variety. Because it required no cooking beyond a quick toast and bacon fry, the meal came together in minutes, making it ideal for hot evenings or late nights when a stove felt out of the question. Each bite offered a balance of smoky, salty, and fresh flavors that satisfied even the hungriest diner. Families loved how it felt both casual and substantial. A dinner that borrowed the best of a classic lunch while proving that a sandwich can indeed stand proudly as the evening's main event. Banana and sour cream salad might sound unusual today, but in the middle of the 20th century, it was a prized quick dish that often doubled as dessert. Cookbooks called for nothing more than slicing ripe bananas, layering them neatly on a plate, covering them with sour cream, and sprinkling the top with a dusting of sugar. In less than 10 minutes, you had a salad that was creamy, tangy, and sweet all at once. Housewives appreciated how it used just 3 ingredients, yet looked elegant enough for luncheons or church gatherings. Children enjoyed the sweetness, while adults saw it as a lighter alternative to heavier pies or cakes. What made it endure was how easy it was to scale. A single banana could serve one person, or several could fill a platter. It was also one of those recipes that made use of fruit before it spoiled, which was essential in thrifty kitchens. Canned peach and cottage cheese plates were a favorite of hot afternoons and light appetites. You took canned peach halves, sweet, syrupy, and already soft, and placed a scoop of cottage cheese in the center where the pit used to be. That was it. Some people added a sprig of mint or a dash of paprika on top for flair, but the basic version needed no embellishment. This dish was chilled, fast, and surprisingly balanced. The fruit gave you sugar and brightness. The cottage cheese gave you protein and creaminess. And together, they made a 10-minute meal that looked more elegant than it had any right to. These plates were common at luncheons and supper clubs, but also at everyday tables across the country. It was a way to use preserved fruit that felt fresh, and it worked especially well when kitchens were too hot to cook. In an era when people were just starting to understand the value of lighter meals and balanced diets, dishes like this led the way. And all it took was a can opener and a spoon. Quick chili cheese dip was a warm, spicy appetizer made by combining canned chili with shredded cheese and heating briefly until melted and bubbly. This 10-minute recipe was perfect for parties, game days, or casual get-togethers, delivering a satisfying mix of smoky, cheesy, and spicy flavors. The dip was often served with tortilla chips or crackers, making it easy to share and enjoy in a communal setting. Its simplicity and speed reflected mid-century America's love for convenience foods that could be whipped up without much fuss. Using canned chili ensured the dip was budget-friendly and accessible to many households. Although chili cheese dip remains popular today, the quick homemade versions of the 1960s had a distinctive charm rooted in combining pantry staples into crowd-pleasing dishes. This recipe embodies the era's knack for hearty, flavorful snacks that made entertaining both easy and delicious. Vinegar pie sipper brought the spirit of frugality to the picnic in a surprisingly refreshing drink. This old-fashioned recipe started with a tangy syrup made by simmering cider vinegar with lemon peel and sugar until it thickened into a golden concentrate. Once cooled, the syrup was mixed with cold well water or chipped ice to create a drink that tasted like the sweet tart filling of a lemon pie. Some church cooks added a dash of nutmeg or cinnamon to give it a warm depth, while others left it pure and bright. It was served in simple mason jars or paper cups and offered an alternative to the usual sweet tea. The drink shocked newcomers with its first sip, tart enough to wake the senses yet soothing on a humid afternoon. It reminded everyone that ingenuity could turn pantry staples into something memorable and thirst-quenching. Children often puckered and laughed at the sharpness, while elders smiled, recalling how such recipes stretched budgets and lifted spirits during harder times when nothing could be wasted and every gathering celebrated resourcefulness. Prune Whip Sandwich transformed the humble prune into a sweet, airy delight by folding a smooth prune puree into lightly whipped cream before spreading it between thin slices of delicate white bread. The result was a soft filling with a gentle caramel flavor that felt both light and indulgent. Mid-century hostesses served it at afternoon teas and bridal showers, where guests appreciated its unexpected sweetness and refined texture. Prunes were valued during the 1940s for their natural sugar content and long shelf life, making this sandwich both economical and appealing to health-conscious families. A dusting of powdered sugar or a hint of vanilla was sometimes added, but the essential charm lay in the simple combination of fruit and cream. Though forgotten by most modern bakers, the Prune Whip Sandwich remains a charming reminder of a time when creative pairings turned pantry staples into elegant treats fit for even the most graceful gatherings and celebrations. Graham cracker porridge sounds like something invented for children, but it showed up in kitchens of all kinds during the 1920s. You crushed graham crackers, those sweet, weedy rectangles, and simmered them in hot milk with a pinch of salt and maybe a sprinkle of cinnamon. That was all it took to make a soft, sweet porridge that felt like dessert for breakfast. It cooked in minutes and was especially popular for kids, invalids, and anyone needing a gentle start to the day. Some added butter, others a drizzle of honey or molasses, but the heart of the dish was always the graham cracker itself. These crackers were a common pantry item, cheap and shelf-stable, and perfect for stretching into something bigger. This porridge had a soft, pudding-like texture and carried a warm, comforting smell that made cold mornings feel a little better. In the 1920s, nutrition advice often encouraged warm, simple meals for energy and digestion, and graham cracker porridge checked every box. It was quick, filling, and surprisingly wholesome. A poor man's breakfast, maybe, but it never tasted like one. Quick Prune Whip was one of those desserts that showed up in mid-century cookbooks as a clever way to turn an overlooked fruit into something surprisingly elegant. The process began with stewing prunes until soft, mashing them lightly, and folding them into stiffly whipped egg whites with sugar. The result was a light, airy dessert with a delicate sweetness and a gentle fruit flavor that made it feel more refined than its humble origins. Housewives liked this recipe because it was inexpensive, easy to prepare, and quick to set on the table after supper. It was also considered a healthier dessert option, since prunes were associated with good digestion and wholesome eating. For children, the whip's fluffy texture made it more appealing than simply being handed a bowl of stewed fruit. It was often served chilled in small dishes, sometimes with a dollop of whipped cream when available. This dessert carried the charm of turning something ordinary into a treat without requiring fancy ingredients. It was a practical recipe, but one that still felt indulgent to those who ate it. Quick Prune Whip reminded families that dessert could be light, fast, and frugal all at once, and it never failed to please. Macaroni with butter and black pepper offered pure comfort with almost no effort, turning a handful of pantry staples into a bowl of creamy warmth. Elbow macaroni boiled quickly in salted water while butter melted in a waiting pot. The drained pasta was tossed directly into the melted butter, and a heavy shower of freshly ground black pepper coated each piece, releasing a fragrant spice that filled the room. A small scoop of grated Parmesan, if available, added a gentle richness, but even without it, the dish delivered deep satisfaction. Ready in less than 15 minutes, it soothed the end of a long day with its silky texture and simple flavor. Children loved the mild, buttery taste, while adults appreciated the subtle heat of the pepper and the reminder that good food does not always demand a complex recipe. This humble meal has endured for generations because it proves that speed, thrift, and pleasure can happily share the same pot when hunger calls for something immediate and comforting. Olive Nut Sandwich was the kind of lunch that turned a plain midday break into something memorable without costing more than a few coins. Back when cream cheese was a rare treat, people would mix it with chopped green olives and finely crushed pecans until it became a thick, flavorful spread. The salt of the olives gave every bite a briny pop, while the pecans added a faint, earthy crunch. Homemakers in the 1930s and 1940s loved this combination because it stretched a small block of cheese across many sandwiches. White bread made the perfect base since it was soft enough to absorb the filling without falling apart, and children enjoyed the smooth, creamy texture. Many church socials and small-town luncheons would feature trays of these sandwiches cut into neat triangles. They were easy to make ahead of time and kept well in a simple icebox when refrigeration was limited today. The mixture might feel unusual, but the contrast of tangy olives and sweet, nutty undertones remains striking for anyone willing to give this forgotten recipe another chance. Pickled watermelon rind. Relish turned what many would throw away into a bright, tangy condiment that lifted every sandwich on the table. After the sweet red fruit was eaten, the firm white rinds were peeled, cubed, and simmered with vinegar, sugar, mustard seeds, and a pinch of cinnamon until they softened, yet kept a pleasant bite. The mixture was packed into jars and chilled, developing a flavor that balanced sweet and sour with a whisper of spice. On picnic day, it was spooned over pulled pork sandwiches, spread across hot biscuits, or served alongside fried fish, where its crispness cut through the richness perfectly. Elders smiled, remembering how this recipe saved money and honored a tradition of wasting nothing, while younger guests were amazed that something so flavorful could come from what most considered scraps. Its bright yellow-green color and lively taste made it a star of the condiment table and a story every cook was proud to share. This relish captured the resourceful spirit of the 1960s church kitchen, where creativity and care transformed humble leftovers into something truly delicious. Egg and potato. Hash turned scraps into a filling supper that could be on the table before the day's stories were finished. Leftover boiled potatoes were diced and tossed into a hot skillet with a bit of butter until their edges crisped to a golden brown. Eggs were cracked directly over the sizzling potatoes, their yolks breaking to coat each bite in a rich sauce as they cooked. A sprinkle of salt, pepper, and maybe a dash of paprika was all it needed. The aroma of frying potatoes and eggs promised satisfaction and thrift, a meal built from yesterday's extras and today's needs. Served straight from the pan, the hash invited everyone to eat family style, forks clinking as the steam rose. It proved that speed never had to sacrifice comfort and that the best dinners often came from making the most of what was already on hand. The asparagus and egg salad was one of those elegant-sounding dishes that was really just smart use of canned food. You drained canned asparagus spears, chopped them into bite-sized pieces, and mixed them with sliced boiled eggs and a tangy dressing. Sometimes it was just vinegar and oil, sometimes mustard and herbs. But it was always fast, cool, and surprisingly filling. This dish became popular not just for its taste, but because it looked fresh and green even in the dead of winter. Canned asparagus gave a touch of luxury to households that could not afford fresh greens often. The eggs added protein and weight, turning the salad into a complete meal in 10 minutes or less. It was often served on a bed of lettuce or with crackers on the side, and it became a go-to for ladies' luncheons and quick Sunday suppers. Like many 1920s recipes, it made the most of pantry goods and added just enough flair to make you feel like you were eating something special, even if it came straight from a can. Quick Grape Nuts Custard was one of those recipes that transformed an everyday cereal into something that felt like a homemade dessert. The method was simple. Heat milk on the stove, stir in sugar, vanilla, and a handful of grape nuts, and let the mixture thicken as the cereal softened. The result was a warm, lightly textured custard that was ready in minutes and cost next to nothing. Many old cookbooks recommended it as an economical way to serve dessert for a family without needing eggs or cream in large amounts. The cereal gave body and nutty flavor, while the sugar and vanilla made it taste more indulgent than it truly was. Families enjoyed it both hot and chilled, and it became especially popular during the Depression when stretching every ingredient mattered. The dish proved that convenience foods like cereal could be adapted creatively into something entirely new. It was quick, practical, and comforting, making it a staple of many kitchens for years. Canned peaches with whipped cream was a beloved, easy dessert in mid-century America, combining sweet canned peach slices topped with a generous layer of light, sweetened whipped cream. This no-fuss treat required no baking or cooking, making it a go-to choice for families wanting a simple yet satisfying finish to any meal. The juicy, tender peaches paired perfectly with the creamy richness of the whipped topping, creating a classic combination of textures and flavors. Often served in individual bowls or dishes, this dessert was a staple at summer dinners, holiday gatherings, and potlucks. Its convenience and deliciousness reflected the 1960s love for canned goods and quick recipes that fit busy lifestyles. Though fresh fruit desserts have become more popular today, canned peaches with whipped cream remain a nostalgic symbol of easy homemade sweets from the era. Minute steak with onion gravy delivered the taste of a slow Sunday supper in a fraction of the time. Ultra-thin beef steaks hit a hot skillet and browned within moments, releasing a rich aroma as they seared. After the meat was set aside, sliced onions cooked in the drippings until they softened and turned sweet. Then a splash of beef broth and a dusting of flour transformed the pan juices into a smooth, savory gravy. The steaks returned to the pan for a brief simmer, soaking up the onion-infused sauce. Served with buttered toast or a mound of mashed potatoes, the dish tasted like comfort that had taken all afternoon, even though it was ready in less than 20 minutes. Families appreciated its hearty flavor and quick cleanup, while the fragrant gravy made the kitchen smell welcoming and warm. Each forkful combined tender beef and silky onions, a reminder that a satisfying meal does not require hours of preparation when technique and simple ingredients come together perfectly. Chutney and cheddar sandwich delivered a bold contrast of sweet and sharp flavors by layering thick mango chutney beneath slices of tangy cheddar on crusty bread. The chutney provided a spiced fruitiness that paired beautifully with the deep bite of aged cheese, creating a combination that felt adventurous yet comforting. Mid-century home cooks embraced this sandwich, as imported chutney became more accessible through specialty markets and women's magazines promoted it as an elegant option for luncheons or cocktail hours. It needed no extra garnish and could be served warm or cold. Depending on the occasion, guests were always surprised by how well the bright chutney balanced the dense cheddar, transforming a simple sandwich into something exciting. Though it eventually faded as global flavors became commonplace, the chutney and cheddar sandwich remains a delicious relic of a time when a single exotic jar could elevate an everyday meal. Horseradish gelatin squares provided a bold finish that sparked conversation long after the last hymn. Lemon gelatin was prepared according to package directions, then blended with finely grated horseradish and a touch of vinegar while still warm. The mixture was poured into a shallow pan and chilled until firm, then cut into tidy squares that shimmered like amber glass. The first bite delivered a sweet citrus start, followed by a sudden rush of heat that cleared the sinuses and surprised unsuspecting guests. Often served alongside cold meats or seafood salads, these squares balanced richness with an invigorating kick. They traveled well in coolers and remained firm even on hot days, making them practical for outdoor gatherings. Some churchgoers approached them with caution, but quickly grew fond of their lively flavor, appreciating how they awakened the palate after a table filled with hearty fare. This dish showcased the adventurous spirit of 1960s church cooks who were never afraid to experiment and bring a spark of excitement to traditional picnic spreads. Banana and mayonnaise sandwiches were one of those strange little miracles of the 1920s kitchen. It sounds odd now, but back then, the sweet and savory combination was not only accepted, it was celebrated. Sliced bananas were laid gently on white bread, and mayonnaise acted like the glue that held the whole thing together. No butter, No jam, just banana and mayo. It was a quick lunchbox staple for children and adults alike, partly because both ingredients were cheap and widely available. Bananas had become more common thanks to improved transportation, and mayonnaise was starting to show up in homes as a ready-made product. It helped that refrigeration was still unreliable for many families, so shelf-stable or naturally resistant foods were a practical choice. This sandwich was quick to prepare, filling enough to stand in for a small meal, and easy to eat on the go. It was also one of those things that people either loved or quietly avoided, depending on which side of the sandwich war you fell on. But if your family made it in the 1920s, chances are you have at least one memory of someone munching on this creamy, fruity creation with zero hesitation. Jell-O whip salad was a mid-century sensation that turned a box of gelatin into something creamy and light in almost no time at all. Housewives would prepare the gelatin, let it partially set, and then whip it together with chilled evaporated milk until it became fluffy. The result was a pastel-colored salad that could be dressed up with fruit or served plain. It was inexpensive, fun to look at, and quick enough to prepare for any gathering. Many cookbooks encouraged it as a safe dish for potlucks because it could be made ahead and transported easily. For families, it was a treat that required almost no cooking skills, yet looked impressive in a glass bowl. It captured the era's fascination with convenience foods while still managing to feel special. The creamy texture made it different from ordinary gelatin, which is why it remained so popular for decades. Which old cookbook recipe deserves a comeback in your kitchen? Share your favorite vintage find in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe so we can keep pulling forgotten treasures from the pages that fed our grandparents.